When I was a student here in 2001, I was very excited when Pete Batchelor did a 3-day intervention in the clock tower, in which he was literally sitting in the clock tower triggering sounds every time the clock chimed. And I thought it would be a really wonderful and beautiful thing to be able to bring him back as somebody who's already got a relationship with the clock tower, to see what we could do and how we could grow that initial idea and that initial project into something much bigger.
So the project was originally motivated by my coming out of the studio in the evenings and hearing Old Joe chime. And I found that although the chimes themselves are very beautiful and very interesting to listen to, that they aren't the only factor in the kind of sonic experience, because of course there's all of the buildings around which reflect the sound, which of course change as you move across the campus. So I would ride my bike across the campus and you'd get these strange Doppler effects and strange kind of reflections from the buildings. Sometimes it wasn't even clear where the sounds were coming from. So there was that aspect which I found interesting, but also the chimes sound different depending on the weather conditions. So if the wind's blowing or if it's humid or if it's raining, the sounds might be absorbed or they might sound different and they might feel different as well.
So technically, there are 2 real levels to the installation. There's the physical loudspeakers themselves, which we have got installed in the clock tower and around the campus. So there's the hardware side of things, of actually physically putting equipment out. And then there's the behind the scenes too. So Pete Batchelor has been really instrumental in making it all work and programming various Raspberry Pis to communicate with each other so that we can have this large scale installation. We also wanted it to be celebratory and wanted to expand it out to something that could be very collaborative. So we drafted an email and communications to composers who'd worked with Beast from 1982, and that was students or staff and current students as well, to get expressions of interest. And we had a really great response, and actually it was the perfect number of people responded to the number of chimes we had over the course of the 7 hours that we run the installation. And then putting together a brief of what we expected people to do or giving ideas. We also had to provide field recordings, so recordings of the clock for them to work with. So sent those out, lots of back and forth, thinking about the multi-channel element of it and what we would want them to deliver in terms of how they might address the speakers in the clock tower and the speakers around the space.
It's not often that you have the opportunity and the privilege to explore sound in a public space on such a large scale as this, with a building like Old Joe. And also to work with a number of composers who were all kind of exploring the same theme. So it had some research exploration potential for that. So along with asking for program notes from the composers, we also asked them to respond to a questionnaire about what motivated them to choose a particular chime time, because some of them did, how they responded to not only the chimes themselves, but also how they were interested in the space and how they responded to that.
Yeah, so of course we do a lot of work with spatial audio here, not usually on such a huge scale and not usually outside. So the idea to have the sorts of things we would do to try to create immersive experiences for people on such a big scale was really wonderful. I love the way that it basically takes something that's familiar to people and just makes them see it in a fresh way. I think that's really wonderful when public art does that.
I think the best word I think for it is ethereal. Just makes you stop and look up and just sort of pause and just, feel part of the campus, I guess.
It sort of took me by surprise the first time I heard it, because I was like, what? This isn't what usually happens every 15 minutes.
It made me feel like I was in like another world. Seeing people like stand still and actually take it in, it made me feel like wow, this is so different.
The clock tower is an icon in the city, and as someone who grew up in Birmingham, it's something that's been visible on the skyline, something to look up to. So to be able to come here and work at the university, and then over the last 12 months or so to work a little bit closer with the clock tower, has been something that has been exciting, interesting. It's been fun seeing behind the scenes. It's been something that has really put a little bit of history on what we're doing here, trying to make the campus a little bit special.
I think I have developed some sort of personal relationship with Old Joe. It has become already a character in my daily life. And when I saw the opportunity of participating in this intervention, I felt, okay, I owe it to the clock tower to do something and leave a little piece of my sound in this record.
Projects like this help us to remember that there is sound around us and help us to remember the everyday and pay attention to it. And we live in a really, really visual world. And sometimes, listening is something that we don't give time to. We all hear sounds, but we don't necessarily stop and listen to what's actually happening. So projects like this really do help us to remember that there's sound around us, to draw attention to what might be the banal sometimes and the things that are forgotten. And I hope that that's something that carries through, and that people that maybe have been moved by it will take that away and start listening to things in a slightly different way.
One thing I hope for in terms of the legacy of the project is that in many ways the installation persists after the intervention has concluded, insofar as once all of the crazy sounds are no longer there, people might start appreciating the fact that, oh yeah, okay, we're back to the original bells now. So actually I hadn't noticed that about them before. Is really just becoming aware of the things that we miss in everyday life.